I gotta say, I was definitely not planning on coming back right now with another video about Ironsworn. I made two already, and I left the gameplay demo with this woods girl off by herself and possibly being sought after by her half-brother Sir Tor and his scholar friend sage Ewan. And if you're interested in those adventures, you can click on the link below to see what that relationship of that story is. But I had a request to do some solo play with just one character. Now, I was doing solo play before, but it was a party of two, the knight and the scholar, but I had a request to do a little bit of solo play with the woods girl and see what was happening with her. And as the request came from Sean Tompkin himself, I decided to do that. I am happy to bring you some kind of on-the-fly thoughts about this woods girl and where she might be and what's going on. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of the backstory because that's in the other video, so you can check that out if you want to. I will, however, remind us that she has three assets here. She is an outcast, and this means that if her supply is reduced to 0, she can take any remaining supply loss as a loss of momentum and then do a roll on her wits and try to scrape by. Now, her wits are 2, so that's, okay, I suppose. So she has taken that path in life. She's also a story weaver, and when she secures an advantage, compels or forges a bond by sharing some type of story or poem, she can add +1 to the roll and take a +1 momentum on a hit. So that's great. Of course, right now she's alone here, so I'm not sure who she's going to be telling that to, but there you go. And she is, as one would expect here, an archer. I gave her the archery combat talent. This is her right here. And what this means, practically speaking, is that when she secures an advantage plus wits, she can take a moment to aim and envision where she's going to land her shot, and then she can take a +1 and take a +1 momentum on a hit. So those are her assets, and her basic stats here, I've given her the biggest stat. Her edge is a 3. She's got a 2 heart, 1 iron, 1 shadow, and 2 wits. She's carrying a bow and arrow, and her extreme vow right now is that she's trying to find the community that knew her mother, because her mother, Lysandra of the Woods, Lysandra of the North, vanished when the woods girl was just 16. She spent a couple of years wandering in the woods looking for her, and hence got the moniker Woods Girl. And this is her vow right now. She wants to find out where her mother is, and indeed if her mother still is. But at the opening of my story with Sir Tor and Ewan, the sage scholar, we know that the woods girl is in trouble. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just trying something a little different. I'm taking this handy little D6 that I have, and I'm going to roll this to give us some sense of where we're going to go first in setting the context for what's happening here. We have rolled on who? Who? Well, who is the woods girl, as we have discussed, and I think it's time to maybe learn a little bit more about her. And in order to do that, we need to dip into the specifics of where she is and what she's doing and how she is faring in doing it. And to do that, I'm going to go to the oracle tables that are here already in the rules, and we're going to look. Well, let's see, first of all, let's roll on the location, see what we get with that. Just a very general, we know she's in the woods somewhere here, but let's roll on this D100 for the locale. We rolled a 91, and she is in the mountains. Well, that doesn't make a ton of sense because she's really in the woods. I guess maybe that's going to direct me here to, she's in this ledge area, perhaps. This is an area with a bridge. It's looking over, it's a rocky ledge looking over some woods. That's where she's going to be right now. And let's see further if we can get some more information, some more description perhaps about this location description. You can't see, but I rolled a 77. And that is going to give us, well, it's flooded. Well, we know that she's in a flooded area because that is this whole region. She is in the flooded lands of the region of the Ireland. So I'm going to say she is in this washed out, flooded bridge area that had... Well, whoops, that's the second time this has happened, filming this game, and it's a testament to the game that it's so involving that I keep running out of batteries while I'm working here. She's in this washed out bridge area, and as I said, we know she's in trouble, and I think it's time now to figure out a little more where she is, and to do that, I need to go again to an external source because I don't have enough in just the Ironsworn rules here to give me what I want. So I'll just move this aside and pick up something you've seen me use before if you watch my channel, which is the Tome of Adventure Design. And it has some wilderness tables here specifically for hills and mountains, and there's also some forest material. So what I'm going to do is roll on some of those tables, and the first thing I really want to do is figure out what type of tree here. We're gonna sort of go macro initially. I want to know something about these trees that we are in. 52 trees that use buoyant root systems to float in water. Okay, well, we are in the flooded lands, so we're going to go back now to the history of our world. I glossed over this a little bit in the first video, but as part of my Truths worksheet, I selected some history for the old world, that there was some sort of sickness that moved through this land and killed everybody in its path, that people fled, and there were survivors who made their way to the Irelands and made it their new home. So there's a legacy of some sickness here that may be still here. We have bleak weather and ancient ruins of the people that lived here before. So given this suggestion here of buoyant root systems, I'm going to say that the fact that we are in the flooded lands, she's in the woods, the root systems are failing, there is definitely a natural infrastructure rot that is coming from within, and our woods girl has become trapped in this. She was on this ledge here, and it became weakened due to decay and years or maybe even decades of moisture seeping into the structure that she's on, and she has begun to feel that it is collapsing underneath her. She is becoming trapped perhaps in some root systems of a tree, and she has fallen. She's lost her one item here, that is her bow and arrow, is gone. She is basically helpless here, trapped in the roots of this tree. So at this point, what her motivation is, what her need is to get free. She looks around, and what does she see? As she is caught up in the root system of this tree, there is the feeling that this bridge is collapsing underneath her, and it is going to, she's going to fall into this gulf below. And she looks around, and what does she see? Well, what she sees is going to come to us from this Forest D100 table, and let's see, we rolled a 15, and what does she see? She sees a broken woodsman's axe. She sees a broken woodsman's axe. It's somewhat just out of her reach, and of course, it too is soggy with the heavy rains that have been happening, but it has a blade, and she's going to make an attempt to reach it and see whether she can kind of chop through some of the roots of this tree that is holding on to her before this bridge structure that she's on gives away and she tumbles into the gravel and dirt below. that is, of course, the story of what has happened. But when you are playing an RPG and using that structure to tell a story, it's not just about the story. Of course, it is about the narrative interplay with the rule set and the character stats, and of course this is the story that we were just focusing on. But now it's time to go back and take a look at the implications of this within the world of the Ironsworn RPG. We start out with a momentum of +2, and we just kind of came into her story in the middle. So she has her initial stat at a +2 momentum. She has her +5 supply, her +5 spirit, and her +5 health. But she has had a few things happen to her that we need to keep track of now. The first thing is that well, I don't want to say first, and I'm not really sure the order of this, or maybe even if I'm doing things quite correctly or as someone else would do them, but this is how I have chosen to do them. Her supply, I'm going to say, has gone down by 2 because she lost her bow and arrow, and that is a significant loss. Supply is abstracted, so I'm counting that as a loss of 2 as opposed to just the one item, because it really is what she had and is pretty major. The momentum, I also am saying that she has lost she lost 1 momentum when she got entangled in the root system, and she lost 2 momentum with losing that bow and arrow. This is just a decision, so this is going to bring her 1, 2, 3 down to a -1 momentum. This is just a decision that I'm making because I think it makes narrative sense to convey the nature of her situation here. She needs to endure the harm of getting entangled, and to start with, that is going to inflict 2 harm on her because this is a dangerous situation, and from the outset that's going to inflict 2 harm on her, bringing her health down to a 3. And then what we need to do is we need to make this endure harm roll, and what that means, I'll just show you here in the book, is that she's facing a physical damage, and she suffered that health loss, which we already did, and then she's going to roll either on her health or iron, whichever is higher, to see what the outcome is. So in this particular case, we can see that her iron is only ever at a 1 at started value, so she'll be rolling on her health to see what the specific impact is, or what the further impact, I should say, is of just this basic dangerous situation where she has become entangled in these this root system. Let me just move this out of the way. And what we get here, well, we rolled nicely here. So she rolled a 6 plus a 3 is a 9, and this, well, we rolled nicely, but we got this 10 value here. So this is going to count as a weak hit, so we're going to press on, and that is in sort of consort with the story that I already told, where she was clearly going to press on with the situation. She doesn't get to get any benefits. She still is, she's not getting any more momentum back or anything like that, but she's also not losing any, so she's going to press on with that. And the other thing that we need to address here is the stress that she has endured, because this is a stressful situation, and we need to therefore roll on this endure stress table here to see what this means. And we're going to be rolling either on our heart or our spirit, whichever is higher. And at this point, our spirit, well, let's see. Our spirit is actually going to be down by 2 because we have faced this shock of dealing with this environmental condition, this dangerous environmental condition, which is a loss of 2 spirits. So our spirit now is going to be at a 3, and our heart is at a 2. So we're still rolling on our spirit to see what further effect this situation is going to have on us, sort of more or less emotionally, I guess, is what, excuse me, what we're referring to here. So we're rolling with our spirit, which is a value of 3. And here we have our roll. So we have a weak hit because we have an 8, and the tie does not count as a hit. So we have what's a weak hit, and a weak hit in this circumstance is also going to mean that we just continue to press on. So all of that makes sense in terms of what we were doing. We need to set up the fact that we have this challenge, and we have to make a progress track worksheet here, which I've done, and you can see that this is a dangerous challenge. It is, I believe, that to be the case, and as such, what this means is that we will be, for every success, every strong success, we'll be gaining 2 progress points. For a weak one, we'll be gaining 2 progress, but losing a supply, and then if we have a miss, something worse is going to happen. I've switched to found a better visual, perhaps, to indicate the area in which she is really this flooded lands, and the terrain tiles that I had was suggesting much more of a solid ground than is here. We're told by the book itself, here is an image of the flooded lands in which she's traveling, and we're told here that it is a place of wetlands and dead trees that have been poisoned by the salt water. There's sluggish rivers, ponds, and lakes shrouded in clinging mist. There may be creatures just beneath the surface lying in wait, and there are some beguiling ghost lights drawn to the warmth of the living. It's a low-lying region of bogs, swamps, lakes, and slow-moving rivers, and this is where she is, and we can tell that travel is precarious here because she's just found herself in this situation that we're going to try to deal with. She sees this waterlogged axe nearby that she first needs to attempt to get and then use to chop herself out of these roots. We're going to do a face danger move, I think is the closest thing, which is an attempt at something risky, and for this we're going to be using our combination of agility and precision. So we'll be rolling on our edge, which is a +3, and let's see what we get on that. Well, once again, we're rolling nicely, and we are getting a strong success on this. So we're going to get 1 momentum. Our momentum currently is down to -1, so that's going to bring us back up to 0, and this is also going to count as a 2 progress on our progress track, which is great. So we'll mark that off. And what is happening is she is, her effort to move forward toward the axe, it's like almost within reach. She can feel it. The mud and roots that are holding her start to loosen slightly to get her slightly closer to reaching that axe handle where hopefully she can pull it out of whatever is holding it down. So we're going to try again here and continue to roll on our edge, which is 3. So this gives us a 7 as against a 6 and a 5, and she is able with 1 more forward motion to grab onto the handle of that axe and pull it out of the mud and the muck which is holding it. So she's getting 2 more progress on that, and she's going to get 1 more momentum, so she's back up to +1. Now the question is, when she pulls it out, she has 1 more effort to make to get it out. Is the axe head going to come with it, or is she just going to end up with the waterlogged handle? That is the question. To this, I guess I'm going to turn to, why not, the oracle table. I want to pause a moment here and explain why I'm going to this Ask the Oracle table, and ultimately why I'm going to just simply say this is going to be a 50-50 luck roll. When I am playing games like this, I try to avoid doing the same move more than 2 or 3 times in a row unless I absolutely have to for narrative sense, like if there's a long combat, for example, and you have to keep going back to the same move. I've done the face danger move twice now, and it's using the same stat, my edge stat, and that's a pretty strong stat for me. I think when you are acting both as the character, the player, and the GM in a game, it helps every now and then, if you can, to interject just total luck to sort of mimic the experience of having the game presented to you by a GM. And so that's what, excuse me, that's what I'm doing here. We have reached, through our actual skill, we have reached this axe handle. Our hand is on it. We're pulling it out of the mud. Are we going to end up with the entire axe, with the axe head that we can use to chop ourselves free, or are we simply going to end up with a waterlogged piece of wood? And there's nothing much we can do about it. We've done the best we can now. It's all down to luck. On a high roll, 51 or greater, we will get that axe, and on a 50 or less, we're just going to end up with a waterlogged piece of wood. So let's see what we get. And we roll nicely. We get a 75, so we have pulled through our ingenuity, our skill, our precision. We have pulled out this axe. The head is intact. It is going to be useful to us, and we begin to chop away at the root system and free ourselves from this entanglement. And now we're in a different situation when we are making this effort, because we need to be very aggressive here, and we're sort of chopping at this root system. This is going to have us rolling with our iron, which is only a 1. So we'll take a look at that and see what we get. We're rolling, well, we're still rolling nicely. So that's a 5, but we got a 6, that's a fail, and a 1. So we got a weak hit. So we succeed, but there's going to be a cost here. And we will take a look now at the options. So we have chopped through the roots that were holding us tight. We start to feel ourselves loosening. Remember, we're above this sort of rocky ravine. I'd probably describe this thing in a lot of different ways, but we're above something dangerous with rocks and this perhaps poisonous, boggy water that's murky and shallow and pretty unappealing. But we have released ourselves from the root system that is holding us, and on this weak hit, we need to face some cost. So the choices here are: we can be delayed, lose advantage, or face a new danger and suffer -1 momentum. We can get tired or hurt, and we could become afraid to endure some stress, or we could sacrifice some resources. And this is where, again, as the solo player, to some extent, you need to step out of the narrative and sort of assess, what do you want to have happen here? And I'm going to step out of the narrative and just sort of talk you through some of the thought process that I would have in this, or I am having in this situation. I'm remembering that one of my assets here as the Woods Girl is this benefit on when I run out of supply. So one of the options here is to, on this weak kit, is to sacrifice supply. Now my supply is currently already a little bit low. It is at 3. So in a sense, that is the weakest or the least troublesome outcome here. I could deal with enduring stress or harm. I've already shown that to you in this video. Or I could just be losing some advantage, facing a new danger, and suffering -1 momentum. My momentum, unfortunately, is already at just a 1. It had gone back up a little bit, but I think what I'm going to do for the purposes of this video is to choose the option of being delayed, losing advantage, or facing a new danger. So I'm going to take another momentum loss, bringing me back down to 0, and then move back into the narrative and describe for you what I think this means. Ambrosia falls down through the intricate root system that has been exposed due to decades of erosion. She lands with a thump in a shallow pool of water that has turned a sickening shade of orange by the organisms living in it. Her body is sore everywhere, and she rolls over, reaching out for the axe. She breathes a sigh of relief when her hand lands on something solid, and she pulls the axe handle toward her. As the mud and leaves slip away, she's surprised to find herself holding not the axe, but something ivory-colored and smooth. It's a bone. Before she can fully process what this means, she hears a sound in the distance. It's the sound of footsteps in the mud, and they are coming closer.